Good afternoon, everyone out there in YouTube land. My name is Jared, and this is my channel, Mazda B3K. In this video, we are going to start what I call the battle for the 5.4, meaning the remediation and damage mitigation for this 5.4 Ford Triton V8 5.4 in my 1997 Ford E-150, and we'll get to it. So I talked about this a little bit in the introductory video. Essentially, there's a ton of coolant that has leaked into this engine. I don't know how long it ran in that condition. So it may still have some life in it, or it may be circling the drain. I don't know which, but I'm going to try to save it because a new 5.4, like a brand spanking 0-mile 5.4, you're looking at around $3,000. I can get it for a lot less, probably from a junkyard. I'm willing to accept some miles. And the fact that this is in a van platform means that it's a ton of work to try to pull an engine. I may be able to do it at home. I may have to take it to a shop. I don't know. But I'd prefer to try to save it. So in that line of thinking, when I first realized all this and got past the whole anger phase of things, I got a pan. I got it under there. And I pulled 11 quarts of garbage out of the oil sump, and then I filled it with about 6 quarts of 1540 diesel oil. And what I've been doing, since I don't know where the coolant leak is, I know that it only leaks under pressure, meaning the engine has to be running for it to leak, because when I filled the coolant reservoir and it just sat overnight, the coolant level did not drop at all. So it's got at least a sort of watertight seal at the moment. Whatever is failing and leaking, it's got to be under pressure. So I said, I'm going to get all the coolant out, and then I'm going to do some work. And that's what I did. So I opened the petcock on the bottom of the radiator, which I'll show you guys that real quick. As this is a van, it sits very low to the ground, which has made life just so much fun. That is the petcock for the radiator. It actually worked perfectly for once. I have horrible luck with these, but this one worked, so cool. And I got a whole bunch, about 12 maybe more, quarts of Ford OEM orange out of there. I mean, look at the underside of this thing. So good. Just a little bit of light rust. So good. There's so much life left in this thing, and the previous owner goobered it up. Grumble, grumble, grumble. Anyway, I did that, and then what I did, isn't my foot amazing? Then what I did is I came over to the power distribution box, the PDU, and after doing some Googling, I pulled this fuse. This fuse is for the fuel relay. So with this pulled, fuel pump can't pump, which means that I can crank the engine and no fuel's coming up. So no bang bang, engine doesn't actually start. It also means that we don't accidentally wind up washing the cylinders in gasoline and flooding it, which I don't want to do either. The fuel stays in the tank. And I did all that because I had this idea of I need to get fresh oil in here, and then I've got a bunch of small oil passages that are going to be all around the cylinder heads that are probably full of gunk, a mix of coolant and oil that I need to try to flush out. So the idea was basically crank the engine, let the starter move the oil pump, get it pumping, and then do 30 to 45 second spurts with some time in between to let the starter cool down, because the starter doesn't have a cooling system and you can overheat it, guys. And then you're out of starter, and then you're really sad because they're expensive. To flush out those small passages, and also to get the coolant mixed with the oil and then get that down into the pan, and then I can drain it with it still mixed together, because oil and water are like polar and non-polar molecules. They don't stay together. Oil will emulsify, but technically it doesn't mix, so it separates fairly quickly when it's not being disturbed. Like you're not actively mixing it or something. So that's the plan here. I'm going to crank it, do a 30-45 second spurt. I've already done a couple over the last few days. And then I'm going to drain the oil and see what I get. And for clarity, this is the first batch of clean oil that should not be additionally contaminated by coolant because I drained the cooling system. There may be still some coolant lurking in the bottom of the block, but there should not be much, because they did a pretty smart job when they designed this, and they made the petcock the lowest point in the cooling system. So all coolant should kind of pool and puddle towards the petcock in the bottom of the radiator, which is, it's not a bad design. So let's go crank it. All right, come on camera, behave. So you're not going to see a whole ton with this. What we're looking to see is at least within the first couple seconds of crank. Would you be quiet? Thank you. Within the first couple seconds of cranking, we want to see the dummy gauge swing out. Now the dummy gauge is a dummy gauge. It basically says if you have at least, it's something silly low, like 8 pounds of pressure, it'll show as okay, when really an idling engine, 8 pounds of pressure, that's really sketchy. You should have significantly more. Anyway, let's watch. There it goes. All right, good job, starter. Okay, big fun time. So, there we go. We got to get past the shield. And then there's our sump. It is a 16 millimeter. So let me break that loose and I'll bring you back right at the moment of capture. All right, let's see if I can do this without making a massive, horrible mess. Let's see how bad this coolant looks. So it should be draining back down into the sump after we got it pumping around. All right, here we go. All right, that looks way more better than what came out couple days ago, which that's still not good. Your oil should not look that way, but that's way better. So you see how this is just kind of hanging here on the see if it'll focus. Yeah, I see how it's kind of hanging on the drain bolt. Shouldn't be doing that, but huge improvement over what I was seeing. So there is hope. So I'm going to let this drain, and then we'll drain the filter, and then we'll swap the filter. I've got extras, and we'll go ahead and put another batch of oil in there because I don't want to leave the internal sitting without oil. There is a non-zero chance that they will rust. Okay, so as you can see, it's kind of a better view of what wound up collecting in the filter. And I didn't try to fully drain it out because it would have taken forever, because it's still pretty nasty. So what's going to go in, and this is going to be an intermediate step. This oil will come back out fairly shortly, so I'm just using all Walmart SuperTech stuff. If you want to run SuperTech, if you got a 5.4 that's worn out and you just don't care, it is a SuperTech ST2. Sierra Tango 2. It is supposed to be the compatible filter. Let's take a look. Looks about right. So I'll go ahead and I will pre-fill it and put some lube on the seal here so that we spin up nice and easy, make a good seal, and then we'll start filling. And I may or may not have mentioned it, but because most likely there is damage, wear to the main bearings on the crank, and that's where your key oil pressure is supposed to be made. we're going with a thick, heavy oil to, it's not really mitigate, but to kind of deal with, or symptoms management, if you will. To try to get more life out of this engine, because unless it started milkshaking and the guy kind of parked it and just left it, these bearings probably have accelerated wear on them because, well, coolant is not oil. There's a reason why they're different. Anywho, 1540, if you want to be a little crazier about the heaviest thing I can think of, would be 20W50, but generally that goes in either older motors with looser tolerances or a motor that's totally clapped out and you're trying to stave off the inevitable. Anyway, let me get this done and we'll go ahead and fill it back up. So, pretty good look at what came out. Now, one thing I did notice is the drips, the stuff that came out at the very end, that was still the more coolant contaminated stuff. So I let this drip for a very, very, very long time until basically there was no drips left coming out of the sump. So what you're seeing here is some of that really nasty stuff that didn't really mix well, just probably was sitting at the bottom of the sump. So this is worse than I think the vast majority of the oil. But even this still looks way better. And the viscosity is horrible. Looks like clouds of Jupiter or something. Anyway, we need to clean this up because what we're going to do is we're going to take, this is a 10-quart pan, and by the way, do not buy these. These are at Walmart. They're horrible. They are the crappiest drain pan I've ever had to work with. The cap holder doesn't work, and there is no incline that makes all the oil want to naturally flow into the drain. So it does this, and you have to manually push/scrape it and then use a bunch of paper towels to clean it up. But we need to do that because we need to pour this into another container so that I can use this again to do the next oil drain, you know, a couple days down the road. So what I've found, because the viscosity on this is still kind of ridiculous in a bad way, just a scraper. So you can take your scraper and just kind of help redirect as much as you can into your catch. Save you just, save you some paper towels and some aggravation and some mess. Anyway, there's a little bit of that going on. So I'm gonna get this cleaned up, get transfer going. And then I need to pour another 6 odd quarts into the engine, fresh oil, so we can get that all mixed up. Okay, so the plan here is this is a much more controllable container than this. And also this doesn't have a guide on the side. This is a 2-gallon container, 8 quarts. That's a 1-gallon container, 4 quarts. So I'm just gonna fill this back up to the tippy top, and then we're gonna empty it. And then we're going to fill it back up again and then add another quart. Really, we're aiming for 6 quarts, folks. So, 1.5 gallons of oil. Then we'll check the stick, see what we see. Alright, so finished changing out the oil, and I got myself staged for next time. Let's go ahead and take a look at the oil. Now, obviously, this is not representative yet because I haven't stirred this oil up. Let's take a look. Right on the towel here. So you can't really tell that this engine is all emulsified now. So I think one more drain and fill will do it. That's looking way, way better than after I did this last time, where I drained the initial bad oil and put in the fill, which is what we just drained today. So I'm excited. This is cleaning up a lot better than I thought it was going to. So I'm going to keep doing my thing. I'm going to occasionally come out here and run the starter as time permits. I don't have a ton of time for this right now during the weekend. The hope is I will do it to it and actually dig in to the engine, get to the intakes, upper and lower, investigate, look for a failure, which I think I'll find with the intakes. If I don't see a failure there, I got to keep going, because that means we're talking head gaskets, which I did buy head gaskets, and I did buy head gasket bolts, and I'm not afraid of doing a head job. It's just aggravating. Anyway, folks, that's going to do it for part 1. Stay tuned for part 2. As I said, that's going to wrap it up for part 1. I know it seemed basically like a glorified oil change, but laid out what's going on and what the method to my madness is, and we saw improvement. I'm gonna keep working on this and see what we get. But for now, if this video helped you out, please like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. I like to read them. I like to respond to them. I like to learn from them. And lastly, I make the mistakes like not checking fluids before purchasing a used vehicle, so that you don't have to. Catch you guys next time.